The space station buzzed with activity as Captain Lisa Morgan walked through the crowded marketplace. Alien traders from dozens of worlds sold their goods while security guards watched with bored expressions. Lisa kept her hand near her weapon but tried to look relaxed. She had learned that showing fear in places like this only invited trouble. Her team waited at the docking bay where their ship sat ready for departure. Commander Kate Sullivan checked the cargo manifest for the third time, while engineer Sam Brooks ran final diagnostics on the engines. Pilot Amy Rodriguez sat in the cockpit playing some old Earth music that made the alien dock workers look confused. Lisa approached the meeting point where their employer waited. Lady Aria Moonwhisper stood tall and elegant in flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. The elf diplomat had skin like polished marble and eyes that held centuries of wisdom. Behind her stood two younger elves who kept their hands on their weapons. "Captain Morgan," Lady Aria said in a voice like silver bells, "I trust your ship is prepared for our journey." "Yes, ma'am," Lisa replied. "My crew knows their jobs. We'll get you to Nexus Prime safely." The elf noble studied Lisa with those ancient eyes. "Forgive my directness, but the Coalition recommended several mercenary companies for this escort mission. All of them had impressive records and advanced technology. Why did you bid so low for this contract?" Lisa shrugged. "We're new to this sector. Need to build our reputation somehow." One of the younger elves stepped forward. "My lady, perhaps we should reconsider. These humans have only been in space for a few decades. Their weapons are primitive, and their ships are barely adequate." "Lyra Starweaver speaks truth," the other elf added. "Elder Thessarian warned against trusting newcomer species." Lady Aria raised her hand for silence. "The decision is made. Captain Morgan's team has the contract." She looked at Lisa again. "Though I admit curiosity about human capabilities in actual combat." They boarded Lisa's ship, which the elves examined with barely hidden disdain. The human vessel looked rough compared to sleek elf designs. Exposed cables ran along bulkheads and everything had a worn, patched appearance. Sam had painted warnings in bright colors near dangerous components, something that made the elves wince. "Welcome aboard the Iron Wolf," Amy announced over the intercom in her cheerful voice. "Everyone strap in because we're about to leave this lovely station behind." The ship launched smoothly despite its rough appearance. Lisa noticed Lady Aria, looking surprised at how quietly the engines ran. "Your engineer knows her work," the elf noble commented. "Sam's the best," Lisa agreed. "She can make anything run better than it was designed to." They had been in hyperspace for 6 hours when alarms started screaming. Amy's voice came over the intercom, no longer cheerful. "Captain, we've got company. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace and they're not here to chat." Lisa rushed to the bridge with Lady Aria close behind. The main screen showed 3 sleek vessels with red markings. Kate was already at the weapons console while Sam's voice came from engineering. "Those are Crimson Fang ships," Kate reported. "Reputation says they're the best mercenaries in this sector." "Incoming transmission," Amy announced. A reptilian face appeared on screen, covered in scales that gleamed like polished metal. Yellow eyes studied them with predatory intelligence. "I am Zixathera, leader of the Crimson Fang Company. Surrender the elf diplomat and we will allow your crew to live." Lady Aria stepped into view. "Captain Zixathera, this convoy travels under Coalition protection. Your attack violates interstellar law." The reptilian mercenary laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "Laws mean nothing in disputed space, elf. Your human escorts are children playing with toys. They cannot protect you from real warriors." Lisa moved to stand beside Lady Aria. "We decline your generous offer. Try to take her." Zixthara's eyes narrowed. "Foolish humans, you face the Crimson Fang, terror of the Outer Rim. We have conquered species far more advanced than your primitive world." The transmission ended. "All hands to battle stations," Lisa ordered. "Amy, evasive maneuvers. Kate, weapons hot. Sam, give us everything the engines can handle." The enemy ships moved with deadly grace, their weapons charging with ominous energy. Lady Aria watched in fascination as the human crew prepared for battle. Their movements seemed chaotic compared to elf precision, but each person knew exactly what to do. They're trying to box us in, Amy reported as she threw the ship into a sharp turn that would have torn apart most vessels. Standard mercenary tactic. Then let's show them something non-standard, Lisa replied. Sam, can you overload the rear deflector? That's completely against safety protocols, Sam's voice came back. It could damage our own systems. Do it. Anyway, Lady Arya blinked in surprise. Captain, that strategy makes no logical sense. Exactly, Lisa grinned. That's the point. The Crimson Fang ships closed in for the kill, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. Their leader had faced hundreds of species and knew how each one fought. Humans were new and primitive. Surely they would follow basic tactical doctrine. The Iron Wolf suddenly stopped all evasive maneuvers and flew straight toward the largest enemy ship. Zixathara watched in confusion as the human vessel charged directly at his flagship. No sane captain would attempt such a suicidal maneuver. At the last possible moment, Sam triggered the overloaded deflector. The massive energy discharge blinded sensors on all three enemy ships, while Amy spun their vessel in a move that should have torn it apart. Instead of colliding, the Iron Wolf slipped past the flagship's blind spot and fired everything they had into the enemy's unshielded engines. The Crimson Fang flagship spun helplessly as its main drive exploded. The other two ships scrambled to reorganize, but Amy was already executing another impossible maneuver. She used the explosion's shockwave to accelerate their ship beyond safe limits while Kate targeted the second vessel's weapon systems. This is impossible, Lyra whispered, watching human tactics that violated everything she had learned about space combat. They're going to get themselves killed. Are they? Lady Arya asked quietly, noting how the human crew worked together, with perfect coordination despite their chaotic methods. The battle lasted only 10 minutes. When it ended, one Crimson Fang ship was crippled, another had lost all its weapons, and the third was retreating at maximum speed. Zixthara's voice came over the radio, no longer confident. This is not over, humans. The Crimson Fang will remember this insult. Looking forward to it, Lisa replied calmly before cutting the transmission. As they resumed course for Nexus Prime, Lady Arya studied the human crew with new interest. They had just defeated one of the most feared mercenary companies in the galaxy using tactics that made no sense according to conventional military theory. Captain Morgan, she said finally, perhaps I underestimated your species. Lisa smiled. Most people do, your ladyship. Most people do. News traveled fast through the mercenary networks that connected the galaxy's criminal underworld. In cantinas and hideouts across dozens of star systems, hardened warriors shared drinks and gossip about the latest contracts and battles. Tonight, however, the usual chatter had taken on an unusual tone. Commander Velnara received the report while standing in the central chamber of her hive ship. The insectoid officer's compound eyes processed information faster than most organic brains. But the data she was reading made no sense. Her mandibles clicked together in confusion as she read the battle analysis for the third time. Impossible, she buzzed to her subordinates. 3 Crimson Fang vessels defeated by a single human ship. The tactical readout must contain errors. Her second-in-command, a smaller version of herself, approached with careful steps. Commander, we have verified the data through multiple sources. The humans used strategies that violate basic military doctrine. Velnara's wings twitched with agitation. The hive mind species had perfected warfare through millions of years of evolution. Every battle followed logical patterns based on mathematical certainties. These humans appeared to ignore such fundamentals entirely. Meanwhile, Captain Morgeth studied similar reports in his crystalline palace orbiting a distant gas giant. The Quartzian leader's body was composed of living mineral that sparkled with inner light as he processed information. His species valued order and predictability above all else, which made the human tactics particularly disturbing. Advisor Kethvar, he called to his aide in a voice like chiming bells. Explain to me how primitive beings accomplish this victory. The younger Quartzian dimmed his light in embarrassment. Lord Captain, our analysts cannot provide adequate explanation. The humans employed randomness as a deliberate strategy. Morgeth's crystalline form darkened with displeasure. Randomness was chaos, and chaos was the enemy of all civilized species. These humans represented something fundamentally wrong with the natural order. Aboard the Iron Wolf, Lisa Morgan's crew continued their escort mission while unaware of the attention they had attracted. Lady Aria spent most of her time on the bridge, asking questions about human military history and tactics. The elf diplomat's curiosity seemed genuine, though her younger companions remained skeptical. "Tell me about your training, Captain," Lady Aria requested during one of their conversations. "How do humans prepare for warfare?" Lisa considered the question while watching Amy pilot through an asteroid field with reckless precision. "We learn from everything, I suppose. Every battle teaches us something new. Every mistake shows us a better way." "But surely you follow established doctrine," Lyra interjected. "All civilized species develop proper military traditions over time." Kate laughed from her position at the sensor console. "Military tradition is just a fancy way of saying we've always done it this way. Sometimes the old way isn't the best way." Elder Thessarian had remained silent during most of these discussions, but now he spoke in his ancient voice. "In my 1,000 years I have observed many species rise and fall. Most follow predictable patterns. Your kind appears different." "Different how?" Lisa asked. "You adapt too quickly," the old elf replied. "Most species require generations to change. Their methods. You alter your approach between battles, sometimes during the same engagement." Sam's voice came over the intercom, interrupting their conversation. "Captain, we've got 3 more ships approaching. They're not broadcasting any identification." The crew moved to battle stations with practiced efficiency. This time their attackers were insectoid vessels with organic-looking hulls that pulsed, with bioluminescent patterns. The ships moved in perfect formation, each one matching the others exactly. "Hive mind forces," Lady Aria identified. "They coordinate through shared consciousness. Fighting them is like facing a single opponent with multiple bodies." "Incoming transmission," Amy reported. Commander Velnara's insect face appeared on the main screen. Her compound eyes glittered with alien intelligence as she studied the human bridge crew. "I am Velnara of the 7th Hive. We have come to test these humans who defeated the Crimson Fang." "Another test," Lisa muttered. "We seem to be popular lately." "Your previous victory was achieved through luck and enemy overconfidence," Velnara continued. "The hive mind does not make such errors. We will study your destruction and learn from it." The insectoid ships attacked with mathematical precision. Each vessel knew exactly where the others would be at any given moment, allowing them to coordinate their fire patterns with deadly accuracy. Their weapons never hit each other while they wove a net of energy around the Iron Wolf. "They're not leaving us any room to maneuver," Amy reported as she dodged between energy beams. "Every time I try to break free, they're already there waiting." Lisa studied the enemy formation, while her mind raced through possibilities. The hive mind's strength was their coordination, but that same coordination might also be their weakness. "Sam, can you create a localized sensor blackout?" "Sure, but that will blind us too." "Not if we don't rely on sensors," Lisa replied. "Amy, when Sam triggers the blackout, fly by instinct only. No instruments, no computer assistance." Lady Aria stared at her in shock. "Captain, that is madness. No pilot can navigate space combat without sensor assistance." "Human pilots can," Kate said confidently. "Amy's flown through worse conditions than this." The sensor blackout erupted around them like a sphere of electronic chaos. The hive mind ships immediately lost coordination as their shared consciousness was disrupted by the interference. They began firing blindly while trying to re-establish contact with each other. Amy closed her eyes and let her hands move across the controls by feel alone. She had learned to fly in Earth's atmosphere, where weather and terrain provided constant challenges. Space was actually easier because it had fewer variables to consider. The Iron Wolf moved through the chaos like a dancer, avoiding enemy fire through pure intuition. Amy could sense where the other ships were without seeing them, following patterns that existed only in her mind. She brought them alongside the nearest insectoid vessel, and Kate fired everything they had into its organic hull. The damaged ship's death throes disrupted the hive mind connection even further. The remaining 2 vessels began shooting at each other in their confusion, mistaking friendly ships for enemies in the sensor blackout. When the interference finally cleared, Commander Velnara found herself alone with one heavily damaged ship. while the Iron Wolf sat nearby completely unharmed. The insectoid commander's mandibles clicked rapidly as she tried to process what had happened. "Impossible," she transmitted. "No individual consciousness can function effectively without technological assistance." "Want to try again?" Lisa offered politely. Velnara's ship retreated without another word. The hive mind had encountered something that violated their understanding of how intelligent beings operated. Individual consciousness was supposed to be inferior to collective thought, yet these humans had used their individuality as a weapon. As they continued toward Nexus Prime, Lady Arya sat in contemplative silence. She had witnessed two impossible victories achieved through methods that defied conventional wisdom. The humans had not won through superior technology or numbers, but through pure unpredictability. "Elder Thessarian," she said finally, "what do you make of our escorts?" The ancient elf considered his words carefully. "They are dangerous, my lady. Not because they are strong, but because they cannot be anticipated. An enemy you cannot predict is an enemy you cannot defeat." Lyra looked troubled. "But they are our allies now. Surely that is good for us." "Perhaps," Thessarian replied. "But I wonder what will happen when the galaxy realizes what we have discovered. These humans represent change, and most species fear change above all else." Unknown to them, reports of their second victory were already spreading through the mercenary networks. Two impossible battles in 1 week had created something new in the galaxy: fear of humans. Species that had dominated warfare for millennia were beginning to whisper a question that would soon become widespread. If they were only humans, why were the mercenaries terrified? The meeting took place in neutral space aboard an abandoned mining station that had drifted between star systems for over a century. Representatives from 3 of the galaxy's most feared mercenary companies had never sat at the same table before, but desperate times called for unprecedented cooperation. Zixthara arrived first, her reptilian features showing signs of the stress that had plagued her since the encounter with the humans. The Crimson Fang leader had built her reputation on never backing down from a fight, but the memory of that impossible battle continued to disturb her sleep. Commander Velnara entered the station with mechanical precision, her insectoid form clicking against the metal flooring. The hive mind officer had been studying human tactics for weeks, trying to find patterns in their chaos. Her analysis had produced only more questions. Captain Morgeth materialized through the airlock last, his crystalline body casting rainbow patterns on the walls. The Quartzian leader moved with the careful dignity of his species, but even his ordered mind had been shaken by reports of human unpredictability. "This gathering violates 1,000 years of tradition," Morgeth announced in his chiming voice. "The Crimson Fang, Hive Mind, and Quartzian Empire have never needed to coordinate against a single target." "These are not normal circumstances," Zixthara replied, her claws scratching nervously against the table surface. "The humans represent something new. Something dangerous." Velnara's compound eyes studied her companions. "My analysts have reviewed both encounters. The humans display tactical flexibility that approaches pure randomness. They cannot be modeled or predicted." "Randomness is chaos," Morgeth stated firmly. "Chaos can be defeated through superior order and preparation." "Can it?" Zixthara challenged. "Your people have not faced them in battle. I have. They ignore everything we know about warfare." Meanwhile, the Iron Wolf continued its journey toward Nexus Prime with its precious cargo. The human crew maintained their normal routines while unaware that their reputation was spreading through the galaxy like wildfire. Stories of their victories had grown in the telling until some versions claimed they had destroyed entire fleets single-handedly. Lady Arya spent her time learning more about human culture and military thinking. She had requested access to their historical databases and found herself fascinated by the sheer brutality of Earth's past conflicts. Humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing each other, with everything from sharpened sticks to weapons that could destroy planets. "Your species has remarkable experience with warfare," she commented to Lisa during one of their conversations. "Most civilized worlds develop space travel and then enjoy long periods of peace. Earth appears to have maintained constant conflict throughout its development." Lisa nodded grimly. "We're good at fighting because we've had a lot of practice. Sometimes I think it's the only thing we're really good at." "Do not sell your people short," Lady Arya replied. "I have observed your crew working together. You possess something that many species have lost in their pursuit of civilization." "What's that?" "The willingness to sacrifice everything for your companions. Most advanced species value individual survival above group loyalty. Your kind appears to reverse that priority." Their conversation was interrupted by alarms as 3 more ships dropped out of hyperspace nearby. These vessels were different from their previous attackers, representing the combined forces of the Mercenary Alliance. Advanced technology from 3 different civilizations had been merged into a coordinated battle group. "This is unexpected," Kate reported from her console. "They're using mixed formations and combined tactics. Someone's been studying our previous engagements." Amy whistled appreciatively as she studied the enemy ships. "They've learned from our earlier fights. No more predictable attacks or standard formations." The lead ship transmitted a message that showed all 3 alien commanders together. Their alliance clearly represented something unprecedented in galactic politics. "Human vessel," Zixthera spoke for the group. "You have caused enough disruption to established order. Surrender now and we will ensure your deaths are quick." "Generous offer," Lisa replied calmly. "But we'll pass." The combined fleet attacked with devastating coordination. Crimson Fang ships provided raw firepower, while hive mind vessels handled tactical coordination. Quartzian forces used their advanced technology to disrupt the Iron Wolf's systems. Together, they represented centuries of military evolution. The first few minutes of battle went poorly for the humans. Their opponents had learned from previous encounters and refused to be drawn into chaotic individual combat. Instead, they maintained disciplined formations while systematically weakening the Iron Wolf's defenses. "They're not making the same mistakes as before," Amy reported as she struggled to find openings in the enemy formation. "Someone's been thinking about how to fight us." "Then we need to think differently too," Lisa decided. "Sam, what's our structural integrity looking like?" "We can take maybe 10 more minutes of this punishment," Sam's voice came back. "After that, things start falling off." Lisa made a decision that violated every principle of sensible tactics. "Amy, plot a course directly, through their formation. Sam, prepare to jettison everything we don't absolutely need to stay alive." "Captain," Lady Arya protested, "that approach is certain suicide." "Only if we do what they expect," Lisa replied. "Kate, target their command ship's communication array. We need to break their coordination." The Iron Wolf suddenly accelerated, directly toward the enemy fleet while ejecting cargo containers, spare parts, and anything else not essential for immediate survival. The humans had turned their ship into a guided missile aimed at the heart of the Allied formation. Morgoth watched in horror as the human vessel approached on what appeared to be a suicide run. "They cannot possibly intend to ram us. The collision would destroy them as well." "Unless they're not planning to collide," Velnara realized suddenly. "Commander, they're using the debris field as cover for their actual approach vector. The ejected materials created a cloud of metal and electronics that confused sensors and blocked targeting systems. By the time the Allied fleet realized the deception, Kate had already destroyed the communication links between their ships. Without coordination, the 3 different species reverted to their individual fighting styles. The careful alliance formations broke apart as each group began using tactics that interfered with their partners. Crimson Fang ships charged aggressively, while hive mind vessels tried to maintain precise formations. Quartzian forces attempted to impose order on the chaos while accidentally blocking their allies' weapons. Amy used the confusion to slip through their scattered formation like a fish swimming through a net. She brought the Iron Wolf alongside a Quartzian cruiser, and Sam triggered their emergency thrusters, using the exhaust to blind the enemy's crystal sensors. The battle became a running fight through an asteroid field as the human ship led their pursuers on a deadly chase. Amy used her atmospheric flight training to navigate between space rocks that should have been impossible to fly through, while the larger enemy vessels struggled to follow. "How is she doing this?" Zixthera demanded, as she watched the human pilot perform maneuvers that violated basic physics. "No ship can turn that sharply in space." "She's treating space like an atmosphere," Velnara observed with growing amazement. "She's flying as if there were air currents and wind patterns to exploit." The chase ended when Amy led them into a particularly dense cluster of asteroids and then shut down all ship systems except life support. The Iron Wolf drifted silently among the rocks while their pursuers searched frantically for any sign of their quarry. Where did they go? Morgoth's voice crackled over the communication channels. Unknown, Velnara replied. They have simply vanished. The Allied fleet spent hours searching the asteroid field before finally giving up and retreating. Their carefully planned assault had been defeated by tactics that made no logical sense. Worse, they had witnessed something that challenged their fundamental understanding of how space combat worked. When the coast was clear, the Iron Wolf quietly restarted its systems and continued toward Nexus Prime. Lady Arya sat in stunned silence as she processed what she had witnessed. A single human ship had defeated the combined forces of 3 major mercenary organizations through pure audacity and improvisation. "Captain Morgan," she said finally, "I believe I am beginning to understand why your species terrifies others." Lisa looked tired but satisfied. "We don't try to be scary. We just do whatever it takes to protect our people." "That may be the most terrifying thing of all," Lady Arya replied quietly. "You fight without limits." Elder Thessarian had observed the entire battle in thoughtful silence. Now he spoke in his ancient voice. "My lady, I fear we have witnessed something that will change the galaxy forever. Word of this victory will spread, and every species will ask the same question." "What question?" "If humans can defeat anyone through pure unpredictability, who can stand against them when they decide to stop being peaceful?" The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council convened in the massive crystal dome that orbited the capital world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 200 species filled the amphitheater, while debates raged about the growing human situation. What had started as curiosity about Earth's newest members had transformed into genuine concern about galactic stability. Admiral Kethmore of the Altarian Navy presented the latest intelligence reports with visible unease. His blue-skinned people had maintained peace for 3 centuries through careful diplomacy and superior technology, but the data he was sharing challenged everything they believed about warfare. "Honorable delegates," he announced in his melodic voice, "we have documented 7 separate engagements between human forces and established mercenary companies. In every case, the humans achieved victory through methods that our military analysts cannot adequately explain." A murmur of concern rippled through the assembled representatives. Species that had never agreed on anything found themselves united by a shared sense of unease about these unpredictable newcomers from the small blue world. "Surely these reports contain exaggerations," declared Ambassador Yathara of the Serpentine Coalition. Her scaled features showed the skepticism that many felt toward tales of human combat prowess. "Primitive species do not defeat advanced civilizations through superior tactics. The evidence suggests otherwise," Admiral Kethmore replied as holographic displays showed tactical recordings from recent battles. "Human forces consistently employ strategies that violate established military doctrine while achieving impossible results." Aboard the Iron Wolf, Lisa Morgan's crew remained unaware of the political storm their actions had created. They had finally reached Nexus Prime and were preparing to transfer Lady Arya to the diplomatic compound where trade negotiations would begin. The mission that had started as a simple escort contract was finally nearing completion. "It has been an educational journey," Lady Arya told Lisa as they prepared for departure. "Your crew has exceeded all expectations and challenged many assumptions about human capabilities." "Glad we could provide some entertainment," Lisa replied, with a tired smile. "Though I'll be happy when we can go back to simple cargo runs that don't involve getting shot at every few hours." Lyra Starweaver had spent the journey learning human combat techniques and found herself changed by the experience. The young elf warrior had always followed traditional fighting forms passed down through generations, but human methods had shown her the value of improvisation and adaptation. "Captain Morgan," she said formally, "I request permission to remain with your crew as a liaison officer between our peoples." Elder Thessarian raised an eyebrow at this unexpected development. "Child, you would abandon the ancient ways to follow these chaotic humans." "I would learn new ways while honoring the old," Lyra replied firmly. The humans have shown me that tradition without adaptation leads to stagnation. Meanwhile, the political situation continued to deteriorate as fear of human unpredictability spread through the galaxy. 3 more mercenary companies had reported defeats at human hands, and stories of impossible tactical victories were becoming common throughout the Outer Rim territories. Captain Morgeth addressed his crystalline council with growing urgency. The human threat must be contained before it spreads further. Their chaotic influence disrupts the natural order that has maintained galactic peace for millennia. "What do you propose?" asked his senior advisor. "Direct military intervention," Morgeth replied. "A demonstration of superior force that will remind these humans of their proper place in the galactic hierarchy." Similar discussions were taking place in hive mind space, where Commander Velnara struggled to convince her superiors that humans represented a genuine threat to established order. The collective consciousness had difficulty accepting that individual beings could operate effectively without central coordination. "The humans fight as disconnected units," she reported to the greater hive. "Yet somehow they achieve coordination that rivals our collective awareness. This should be impossible, according to all known principles of military science." Zixthara faced her own challenges as Crimson Fang morale continued to deteriorate. Mercenaries who had never known fear were now reluctant to accept contracts that might involve fighting humans. The reputation that had taken decades to build was crumbling because of a single species that refused to fight according to proper rules. "We need to restore our standing," she told her lieutenants during a strategy meeting. "The Crimson Fang cannot be seen as weak because of these humans." "Then what do you propose?" asked her second-in-command. "We find them and finish what we started," Zixthara replied grimly. "But this time we use overwhelming force. No more testing or probing attacks." The Iron Wolf had completed its mission and was preparing to leave Nexus Prime when alarms began sounding throughout the system. A massive fleet had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, representing the largest gathering of mercenary forces in galactic history. "Captain," Amy reported from the pilot's seat, "we've got approximately 50 ships heading our way, and they're all broadcasting the same message." The main screen activated to show Zixthara's scarred features. Behind her stood Commander Velnara and Captain Morgeth. Their unprecedented alliance now expanded into a full military coalition. "Human vessel Iron Wolf," Zixthara announced. "You have caused enough disruption to galactic order. Surrender immediately or face the combined might of every major mercenary organization in this sector." Lisa studied the tactical display that showed enemy forces spreading out to surround the system. 50 ships represented more firepower than most planetary defense forces could muster. It was clearly intended as an overwhelming show of force designed to end the human threat once and for all. "That's quite a reception committee," Kate observed dryly. "I'm guessing they're not here to congratulate us on a job well done." "Options," Lisa asked her crew. "We could try to outrun them," Amy suggested. "But they've got us surrounded and some of those ships are faster than we are." "We could hide in the system until help arrives," Sam added. "Though I'm not sure who would come to rescue us." Lady Arya stepped onto the bridge with Lyra close behind. "Captain, the Coalition Council is in emergency session debating your situation. However, political decisions take time that you do not have." "Then we do what we always do," Lisa decided. "We figure out a way to win against impossible odds." The first wave of attacks began as enemy fighters launched from the larger ships. Hundreds of small craft swarmed toward Nexus Prime like angry insects, while capital ships moved into bombardment positions. The sheer scale of the assault was designed to overwhelm any possible defense. "They're not taking any chances this time," Amy noted as she began evasive maneuvers. "No single ships or small formations. They're throwing everything they have at us." The Iron Wolf dove toward Nexus Prime's surface, while enemy fire lit up space around them. The planet's orbital defense platforms activated to provide covering fire, but they were clearly outmatched by the attacking fleet. This battle would be decided by individual courage rather than superior technology. "Sam, can you patch us into the planet's communication network?" Lisa asked. "Already done, Captain. You're broadcasting to the entire Coalition Council." Lisa activated the transmitter, knowing that representatives from 200 species would hear her words. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the human vessel Iron Wolf. We're about to show you exactly why the mercenaries are terrified. The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy truly understood what humanity represented. Against overwhelming odds and impossible circumstances, a single human crew prepared to demonstrate why their species had become the stuff of nightmares for professional soldiers across the stars. "All hands," Lisa announced to her crew. "Let's show them what humans can do when we stop holding back." The Coalition Council chamber fell silent as representatives from 200 species watched the tactical displays showing the massive mercenary fleet surrounding Nexus Prime. Admiral Kethmore stood at the central podium with his blue features, pale with concern as he realized they were about to witness either humanity's finest hour or their complete destruction. "Single human vessel against 50 enemy ships," he announced unnecessarily. "The outcome appears inevitable." Ambassador Yithara of the Serpentine Coalition leaned forward in her seat. "Perhaps now we will see these humans humbled and returned to their proper place in the galactic order." But Elder Thessarian, who had been granted special observer status, spoke quietly from his position near the elf delegation. "Do not be so quick to assume the outcome. I have learned never to underestimate human resourcefulness." Aboard the Iron Wolf, Lisa Morgan stood on her bridge surrounded by the crew that had become her family over years of dangerous missions. Amy Rodriguez sat at the pilot controls with her hands steady despite the overwhelming odds. Kate Sullivan monitored weapons systems while calculating target priorities. Sam Brooks worked frantically in engineering to coax every possible advantage from their aging ship. "Captain," Lady Arya said softly, "you do not need to sacrifice yourselves for diplomatic principles. The Coalition would understand if you chose to surrender." "No," Lisa replied firmly. "We finish what we started. Sam, give me ship-wide communications." When the channel opened, Lisa spoke to her crew with the calm voice of someone who had already accepted whatever outcome awaited them. "Everyone knows the situation. 50 ships want to prove that humans don't belong in this galaxy. I say we show them exactly why they're wrong. We've beaten impossible odds before, and we'll do it again today." The first wave of enemy fighters reached weapons range and opened fire with concentrated energy beams. Amy threw the Iron Wolf into a spiraling dive that brought them skimming along Nexus Prime's upper atmosphere while defensive fire erupted around them like deadly fireworks. "Using atmospheric flight again," Commander Velnara observed from her flagship. "They cannot maintain that approach for long without burning up." But Amy had learned something during their previous battles that the aliens had not anticipated. Human atmospheric fighters regularly performed maneuvers that would destroy spacecraft designed only for vacuum operations. She used the planet's gravity well and thin upper atmosphere to execute turns that no spaceborne pilot would attempt. 2. Iron Wolf spun through complex aerobatic patterns while Kate targeted the enemy fighters with precise bursts of weapons fire. Each shot was calculated to disable rather than destroy, following human military doctrine that valued capturing enemy equipment over simply eliminating threats. "They're not trying to destroy our fighters," Zixthara realized with growing alarm. "They're attempting to capture them intact." "Impossible," Captain Morgath stated firmly. "No single ship can board and capture multiple enemy vessels during active combat." Amy proved him wrong by bringing the Iron Wolf alongside a damaged enemy fighter and using magnetic clamps to attach it to their hull. Sam had rigged the clamps with override codes that shut down the captured ship's weapons and communication systems. Within minutes, they had acquired their first prize. The watching Coalition delegates stared in amazement as the human ship repeated this process with 3 more enemy fighters. Each capture was performed with surgical precision while under heavy fire from the remaining mercenary forces. "Remarkable," Admiral Kethmore whispered. "They're fighting to capture rather than kill. Most species would consider such tactics impossibly dangerous. Humans appear to thrive on impossible dangers," Elder Thessarian replied. The mercenary fleet responded by sending their capital ships into the battle. Massive vessels with enough firepower to level cities began systematic bombardment of the areas where the Iron Wolf had been spotted. Zixthara coordinated the attack while Velnara provided tactical analysis, and Morgath contributed his advanced targeting systems. "End this charade," Zixthara ordered. "Destroy them completely." But the humans had vanished again, using the captured fighters to confuse sensor readings while they approached their real target. Lisa had realized that winning this battle required more than just surviving. They needed to break the mercenary alliance by striking at its weakest point. "Amy, take us to the command ship," she ordered. "It's time to have a conversation with our old friend Zixthara." The Iron Wolf emerged from the sensor confusion directly beneath the Crimson Fang flagship. Sam had modified their weapons to emit a specific frequency that disrupted reptilian nervous systems, a technique she had developed by studying the enemy's biological makeup during their previous encounters. The disruption beam struck Zixthara's ship and immediately caused chaos among the reptilian crew. Their coordination collapsed as nervous system interference made complex thought impossible. The flagship began drifting helplessly while its captain struggled to remain conscious. "Boarding party ready," Kate reported as she prepared to lead a team onto the enemy vessel. "Negative," Lisa decided. "We're not here to conquer. Amy, bring us alongside their bridge. I want to talk." The two ships connected through docking airlocks while the rest of the mercenary fleet watched in confusion. Lisa walked across to the enemy bridge with only Lady Arya and Lyra as companions, demonstrating the kind of trust that most species would consider insane. Zixthara waited in her command chair, weakened by the neural disruption but still dangerous. Her yellow eyes studied the human captain with a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. "You have won," she admitted reluctantly, "but victory over one ship does not end this war." "There is no war," Lisa replied calmly. "There's just fear. Fear of something you don't understand." "We understand enough," Zixthara snarled. "Humans are chaos, unpredictable, dangerous." "We're adaptable," Lisa corrected. "We learn from every fight and every mistake." "That's not chaos, it's evolution." Lady Arya stepped forward with diplomatic grace. "Captain Zixthara, the Coalition offers amnesty to all mercenary forces who withdraw peacefully. This conflict serves no one's interests." "The Coalition," Zixthara laughed bitterly. "Your precious Coalition will fear humans too once they fully understand what they have invited into their ranks." Throughout the star system, the remaining mercenary ships began withdrawing as news of their leader's capture spread. Without Zixthara's coordination, the carefully planned alliance fell apart. Commander Velnara retreated to hive mind space, while Captain Morgeth returned to his crystalline empire. The greatest mercenary fleet in galactic history dispersed without achieving its objective. In the Coalition Council chamber, representatives watched in stunned silence as a single human ship accomplished what should have been impossible. Admiral Kethmore found himself reconsidering everything he thought he knew about military strategy and species capabilities. "Motion to upgrade Earth's status within the Coalition," declared the Centauran delegate. "These humans have proven themselves worthy of greater respect." "Seconded," added the Andromedan representative. "Perhaps it is time we learned from their tactical innovations rather than fearing them." The vote was unanimous. Earth would be granted full membership with all the rights and responsibilities that implied. More importantly, human military advisors would be invited to share their knowledge with Coalition defense forces. Aboard the Iron Wolf, Lisa completed negotiations for Zixthara's release in exchange for a formal peace treaty between human forces and the Crimson Fang organization. The reptilian mercenary leader would maintain her reputation while privately acknowledging that humans were not the primitive species she had originally believed. "This changes nothing," Zixthara warned as she prepared to return to her ship. "Others will test you. Others will seek to prove that your victories were mere luck." "Let them come," Lisa replied with quiet confidence. "We'll be ready." As the Yahtzee Iron Wolf departed Nexus Prime with its mission finally complete, Lady Arya reflected on everything she had witnessed during their journey together. The elegant elf diplomat had arrived believing humans were interesting primitives, but she was leaving with profound respect for their capabilities. "Captain Morgan," she said, as they watched the stars pass by through the bridge viewports. "I believe your species will reshape this galaxy in ways none of us can imagine." "We just want to find our place among the stars," Lisa replied. "Same as everyone else." Lyra Starweaver, now officially assigned as liaison between human and elf forces, smiled at her captain's modest response. "Perhaps that is exactly why the mercenaries are terrified. You do not seek to conquer or dominate. You simply refuse to be defeated." Elder Thessarian nodded in agreement. Fear of the unknown is the most powerful force in the galaxy. Humans represent ultimate unknown, limited only by their own imagination. The news of humanity's triumph spread through every settled system, carried by traders and travelers who embellished the story with each telling. The phrase, "they're only humans," became a warning rather than dismissal, whispered in cantinas and mercenary hideouts across the galaxy. Some species would continue to test human resolve, seeking to prove that the victories were flukes or luck. Others would seek alliance with these unpredictable newcomers who had demonstrated such remarkable capabilities. A few would retreat to their home systems and hope that humans remained focused on exploration rather than conquest. But everyone would remember the day when a single human ship faced impossible odds and emerged victorious through pure audacity and determination. The galaxy had learned why the mercenaries were terrified, and that knowledge would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come. In the end, humans had proven that they belonged among the stars not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through something far more dangerous to established order: the absolute refusal to accept defeat when protecting those they considered family.